I do active shooter training with my church every year. Now, there are some churches that's all they do is active shooter training. That's not appropriate. You do active shooter training once a year to make sure your congregation and your people are on board with the protocols and how to stop it. Making it your sole purpose is a little overboard because there are other things that are more likely to happen at your church. Today, November 5th, marks the anniversary of the 2017 mass church shooting in Sutherland Springs, Texas. Devin Kelly, the suspect, killed 26 people and wounded 22 others at the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. Now, Kelly was shot and wounded by a local resident and then killed himself following a car chase. It is the deadliest mass shooting in Texas history and one of the deadliest at an American place of worship, even surpassing the Charleston church shooting of 2015. I think it's very important for us to talk about this shooting and the lessons learned, the things that we can learn from this so it doesn't happen again, because our mission at Christian Warrior Training is to make sure that you have all the tools that you need for free to make sure this never happens at your church. Head over to ChristianWarriorTraining.com, subscribe to our newsletter. You can get free training, free. There's no gimmicks. It's my gift to you as a fellow follower of Christ. And you'll get our newsletter that talks about church crime every week and also a training tip every Wednesday. If you want to support our mission, a paid subscription goes a long way. This is our full-time job, supporting you to get free training to all of the people protecting our churches. All right, now let's go back to November 5th, 2017. Let's talk about it. We'll end with what you can do to make sure this doesn't happen to you. Now, a few minutes after 11 a.m., the suspect, Kelly, arrived in a white SUV at the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs. At about 11:20 a.m., Kelly stepped out of the SUV wearing black tactical gear, a ballistic vest, and a black face mask featuring a white skull, and wielding a Ruger AR-556 semi-auto rifle. He approached the church from the right, opening fire and killing 2 people outside the church and continuing to fire on the building itself. He then entered the sanctuary through a right side door where worshipers were attending regular Sunday service. After entering, Kelly yelled, "Everybody dies, motherfucker," as he proceeded up and down the center aisle and shot at people in the pews. Police found 15 empty magazines capable of holding 30 rounds each, and authorities stated Kelly fired approximately 450 rounds during the estimated 11-minute-long shooting. According to investigators, the shooting was captured on a camera set up at the back of the church to record regular services for uploading online. The footage shows Kelly methodically shooting the victims, pausing only to reload his rifle. Kelly was then confronted by and traded fire with Steven Williford, who was a local resident and a former firearms instructor. Now, I had the privilege of talking to Steven on the phone. I have a couple of friends that know him. I'm hoping one day to be able to teach a class on active shooter with him. We'll work that out at some point. But with that said, there's a great interview with Steven that I want to share with you.
All I was hearing, she came into my room and said that it sounded like gunshots. And when I was listening at it, it sounded like tapping at the window, and I opened the window and did not see anything. And when I went into my kitchen, it sounded more like gunshots from there. And I said, "Oh my God, somebody's shooting." I ran to my safe where I keep my gun. I grabbed a rifle out of the gun safe. My daughter ran out the door and actually got in her car and drove to the corner. And when she saw a man in black tactical gear, she came running back in and said, "Dad, there's someone at the church in black tactical gear shooting up the church." I didn't have any time because I kept hearing the shots one after another, very rapid shots, just pop, pop, pop. And I knew every one of those shots represented someone, that it was aimed at someone, that they weren't just random shots more than likely. I grabbed a handful of ammunition and started loading my magazine. I ran outside. I didn't even take time to put my shoes on. And I ran across the street looking for it. And when I came into the neighbor's yard, his Dodge pickup truck was sitting right there. And I noticed an SUV, a gray SUV, sitting across from the church, or in front of the church, across the street from my neighbor's house, with the driver's side door open in the middle of the street. And I didn't know it at the time, but the engine was running. And I'm trying to survey the situation, not knowing what's going on. And then I saw a man in a black tactical helmet with a dark shaded helmet on, and obviously looked to me like it was bulletproof vest. And he had a pistol in his hand, and we exchanged gunfire.
Now, there's a whole bunch more to this story, and one day I'll do a full debrief about this guy's military service, his violent behavior, all of his relationships. Hopefully we'll get Steven Williford on here to come talk to you personally about what occurred. But I just want to do a quick video to help us all remember that this occurred and talk about what things that we can do immediately to protect our own churches. Number one, have a safety team. You've got to have a safety team at your church to be on the lookout for danger like this. Pastors, if you're watching this and you're wondering if you need a safety team or not, you do. Times have changed, and having a safety team is rooted in the Bible. We've talked about it numerous times on this channel about the Bible verses that talk about safety, where Jesus was concerned about people's safety, about people going out to watch over others while they ministered. You need to have a safety team. When you have a safety team, it's super important to make sure that you have people posted up at entrances that are open. So that way, when you see the bad man coming, you can lock the church down. As an example, for our paid subscribers, we did a video that showed the brutal slaying of 45 people in New Zealand. It was hard to watch, but one of the things that struck me is it mimicked Sutherland Springs, meaning a guy was walking up to the church, came up to the front door with an AR-15 and a shotgun, and there was nobody there to stop him. If you had a security team that was vigilant, their only job is to look out for the safety of the people at the church, they would have seen him and closed and locked the doors or engaged him with gunfire to stop him and save the people inside. The other thing to remember is you never know when it's going to be your day. The chances of something happening at your church are absolutely minimal, but that's not zero. And if it's not zero, you have to prepare for that day. How do you prepare for that day? I make sure that I carry a gun that is adequate to deal with an active shooter. I don't carry a gun because it's comfortable, and I carry a small Glock 43 or a SIG, P365, because it's what I can fit and wear comfortable clothing. Look, it's not a fashion show. I'm not trying to look good for anybody. In fact, if you want this shirt, Christian Warrior Training, you can go to our merch tab. Go to the link. I'll put the link below. You can go to our shop. This shirt is specifically made a little bit bigger so that you can hide your gun. Okay. I carry usually a Glock 19, which is a mid-size gun with, I think I got 15 rounds in the mag and a round in the chamber. I carry ammunition that is specific for self-defense. I carry Spear Gold Dot, carry an extra magazine, and I stay vigilant. Do I have to wear clothing to hide the gun? Yes, I do. But I'm not trying to look good for anybody. I don't care what I look like. I make sure that I can conceal that gun, and I make sure I never go anywhere without it. One of the things I sign off with on this channel is to remember your ABCs, always be carrying. I mean that. The other thing that helps a lot, if you can afford it. Now, the things I've talked about for churches are free. Having a church safety team is free. All you've got to do is put out that you want a church safety team, vet those people, meaning do a background check on them, interview them, and make sure they have what you need, and then train them and have policy in place to protect them and your church. All of that is for free over at ChristianWarriorTraining.com. Go over there, hit the training tab, and you can start taking training and get a certificate. Side note, for those of you having problems downloading the certificate, can't do it on a phone, got to do it on a computer, and you got to have pop-ups enabled so you can download it. But all that stuff is for free, okay? If you have the money, it's super important to have a 4K video system and then have somebody watching that 4K video system, because that's a force multiplier. What that's allowing you to do is have one person there looking at multiple angles around your church. When we look at many of shootings like Sutherland Springs, the one in New Zealand, we all see somebody armed walking up to the church. And if you have cameras placed at right angles, You can see them long before they've made their approach. And a 4K video system will make you understand it's a gun and not an umbrella or something else. And you can clearly see that. You also want to hold regular active shooter training. I do active shooter training with my church every year. Now, there are some churches that's all they do is active shooter training. That's not appropriate. You do active shooter training once a year to make sure your congregation and your people are on board with the protocols and how to stop it. Making it your sole purpose is a little overboard because there are other things that are more likely to happen at your church, like burglaries, arson, vandalism, domestic violence, something like that. So my recommendation to you is to make sure you hold active shooter training once every year, make it realistic. One of the things you can see in this B-roll that I do is I go for something called stress inoculation. What I find is that people that are very boisterous about this is what I'm going to do. I am going to go and I'm just going to shoot that guy and I'm going to do all sorts of cool stuff. And because I train. And what I find is the minute we go in with an AK-47 with blanks, that's very realistic. Everybody vapor locks and nobody moves forward and nobody goes after the bad man because they are so overwhelmed. Their senses are overwhelmed. They've never experienced somebody shooting at them before and they lock down. By doing this with the AK-47 with blanks, and you got to do it safely, just don't start doing it. You have to actually have training. Otherwise, you're going to have an Alec Baldwin incident. What you'll see is that by the end of the day, people will go to the gunfire to stop the person. That's why you do that training. All this stuff costs my church nothing because I pay for the blanks. I use the equipment I already have. I have the knowledge already because I was training law enforcement in active shooter techniques. These are all things we already know how to do, right? And it just doesn't cost anything. And it can help us avoid an incident like Sutherland Springs. Now, I'm going to sign off like I always do. I want you to pray, but I want you to hold on a minute. Okay. I want you to pray for your safety of your church and safety of your family, safety of our safety team members that are watching over us while we worship Christ. I want you to remember your ABCs. Always be caring. And that's usually where I stop. I want to stop this time instead, remembering the victims of Sutherland Springs. I want you to pray for their families. I want you to pray for Steven Williford. That man is a hero, and he's got a lot of trauma probably that he's got to deal with. And I want you to pray for him and his family. And I want you to pray for the safety of all of our congregations. God bless you, and thank you for following Christian Warrior Training.